Hey everyone, FinTech here. Many say the metaverse is going to be one of the most significant investing trends of the next decade. And with giant companies like Facebook rebranding to Meta Platforms and changing their ticker symbol to MVRS, or Microsoft adding metaverse immersive experiences to Microsoft Teams, that discussion has never been more immediate. But what is the metaverse, and how can we get in on this trend early enough to make some massive investment returns? Well, in this video, I'm going to be doing a brief overview of what the metaverse is, talk about two different possible outcomes for what the metaverse will look like, and talk about three specific stocks that you can buy today to invest in this trend. And I'll also be mentioning some other metaverse companies throughout the video that you might also want to look into, so make sure you watch until the end so you don't miss anything. With that said, let's start by talking about what the metaverse actually is. So the metaverse isn't a new concept. It's been around in pop culture for close to a quarter of a century in one form or another. But the term was first used by a science fiction writer in 1992 in the book Snow Crash. But the metaverse we're talking about today isn't science fiction. It's happening right before our eyes. If we wanted to drastically oversimplify, we could say that the metaverse is the application of augmented reality and virtual reality to extend our physical world into the shared digital world, as well as all the changes that come with such an application. So imagine you put on your VR headset and you enter something like the Internet of VR, complete with its own digital items like its own economy and the ability to interact with others. In the same way the internet revolutionized everything in everyday life, from running corporations in the cloud right down to liking a post on Instagram, the metaverse will have a similar magnitude of effect. But more useful than a definition is to look at real-world examples of the metaverse already around us. The most obvious and visible form of the metaverse, at least to me, is from video games, which have been allowing us to share massive online virtual worlds with each other for years, and not just for playing games. RuneScape is an example of an old MMO, or massive multiplayer online game where everyone plays in the same online world. But while you could treat a world like this just as a video game, there were people who made real-world friendship connections online, and even people who made a living working entirely in the MMO. See, RuneScape had its own economy in the game, one where you could actually buy and sell items to other players. Well, a little after 2010, existing players started noticing a large uptick in Venezuelans playing the game and farming the in-game currency for hours on end. This was weird because everyone doing this seemed to be from the same country. It later turned out this phenomenon was caused by the collapse of the Venezuelan economy amid rampant inflation in the 2010s. During that time, the situation in Venezuela became so bad that you could actually make more money farming coins in RuneScape than you could working a real job in the country. The in-game currency was actually more stable than the national currency. This is obviously an extreme example, but it gives us a glimpse into a world where a robust metaverse economy, possibly running on top of a cryptocurrency like Ethereum, could actually be a viable alternative to many real-world economies today. Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta, similarly talked about his own vision of the metaverse.
The basic story of technology in our lifetimes is how it's given us the power to express ourselves and experience the world with ever greater richness. Back when I started Facebook, that mostly meant text that we typed on computers. Then we all got phones with cameras, and the internet became much more visual. And recently, as connections got faster, video has become the main way that we experience content. We've gone from desktop to web to phones, from text to photos to video, but this isn't the end of the line. The next platform and medium will be even more immersive, an embodied internet where you're in the experience, not just looking at it. And we call this the metaverse.
In the same way mobile computing was a paradigm shift in the way we interacted with the internet, taking it with us rather than having to plug in our computers at home. The metaverse takes us one level deeper in terms of immersion and connectivity, to the point where it feels like you're actually there. Zuckerberg obviously talks about these things in Facebook terms like social connections or immersive experiences, but regardless of what company actually builds it, the metaverse seems inevitable. Looking back over the past 30 years, the number of things you can do in the physical world that you can't do in the digital one is slowly shrinking, and there's no reason for that trend to go away anytime soon. The obvious next step is a fully connected virtual world that runs in parallel to the physical world and allows connections between the two. But while most agree on the vision of what the metaverse will generally look like, there is some disagreement on who is going to own the metaverse, and that's a pretty important question for investors. There are kind of two trains of thought on this. Number one is a walled garden approach, similar to what we see with mobile phones today. There will be big companies that develop metaverse apps that have loose connections between them. So maybe I can buy a digital couch on Amazon to decorate my Facebook virtual house, but I don't have the ability to go into the code and make changes that either Facebook or Amazon didn't intend. In this world, consumers would need to rely on competition between the big companies to drive innovation forward, and those would be our likely investment targets. Big FAANG stocks like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, and even Facebook would all likely use their existing market share and money to build strong walled gardens that smaller players could not effectively compete with, forcing them instead to work within those larger companies' ecosystems. In this world, you could invest in the big tech companies, hoping that they make enough off the metaverse to move the needle in their already large market caps. And this is a realistic possibility, considering Bloomberg Intelligence estimates the total addressable market for the metaverse at $800 billion in 2024, up from the $500 billion it has today. But if you include all the companies that will building up the infrastructure behind the metaverse, that hits a market cap of $2.5 trillion by 2030, according to investment firm Roundhill Capital. But aside from just investing in these big tech companies, you might also invest in a metaverse ETF, like Roundhill Capital's Meta ETF, though it does have a fairly high expense ratio, and I think it's probably a little early to try to go that broad on this opportunity. I just don't think the metaverse is quite big enough yet to see substantial correlation in those stocks. But there's another view of how the metaverse will develop, and I think it is even more intriguing. This is a metaverse that works as a fully decentralized platform that app developers can build on top of. Cloudflare wrote a blog post on this topic back at the start of October 2021. They talk about the metaverse as an internet where you can hop into an app and have access to all your favorite digital goods available for you to use, regardless of where you purchase them. The metaverse is a place where copyright and ownership can be managed through NFTs, non-fungible tokens, stored on IPFS, and accessed trustlessly through Ethereum. Now that's a lot of technical words, but let's just break it down simply. Their view of the metaverse is not as a walled garden, but as a completely open ecosystem where you can literally own your digital goods and no company can put restrictions on that ownership. The only way to guarantee that ownership, make it an NFT. Now I won't go into the details of NFTs here, but you can watch my full video on minting my own NFT if you're interested in that topic. Cloudflare believes you will then be able to run the backbone of the metaverse on a blockchain, most likely Ethereum, completely decentralizing ownership away from big companies like Google and Apple and putting ownership of the different apps and services in the hands of the community. Now, this doesn't mean Facebook couldn't build an app that interacts with the blockchain and lets you import your digital goods into their platform. But at the core level, ownership is tracked on the blockchain and not at the discretion of any one corporation. To me, the utility in this model is super clear. Look at Roblox, for example. Roblox is a game/gaming platform where you can buy and sell digital goods such as outfits that you can wear in-game. For example, Gucci partnered with them to sell branded Gucci accessories that your character could wear. Now, in this case, even though you paid for a Gucci handbag, you can only use that bag in Roblox. But in a decentralized world, you could pay for that item once and then import it into multiple games or apps. So really, this decentralized view, in my opinion, creates the most value for the non-tech companies who might want to get into the metaverse. Look at Nike trademarking their brand in the metaverse. Now, some people might laugh at this, but it makes sense from a company perspective. If a brand's value is from how other people perceive you, it doesn't matter if a good is physical or digital, as long as it's a scarce resource. Now, I know some people will say, but it doesn't cost Nike anything to make a digital good, while with real products, they have to put in time and engineering costs to make them high quality. Why would anybody buy their digital stuff? And that's fair. But digital goods can absolutely take time to create. Look at Beeple, who sold his NFT of all of his artwork for $69 million. That was the accumulation of years of work, from him producing one new piece of work every day for 14 years. And my other response would be that a brand's value does not necessarily equal its quality. A pair of Gucci shoes might cost $500. Will they last you 10 times as long as a pair of New Balance shoes from Walmart? No. You wear them to flex how much money you have. And if only Gucci is allowed to use their logo on digital goods, well, those digital goods would let you flex just as hard as physical ones. So now that we have a vision of each of the two ways that the metaverse could develop, let's talk about stocks you can invest in to take advantage of them. You could obviously invest in any of the companies that I mentioned earlier or in Ethereum, but the first stock I would consider investing in is Cloudflare. Cloudflare has a clear vision of what they think the metaverse will look like, and they are already developing products to serve that vision. In the same way Cloudflare today works to make the internet itself run better and take what is fundamentally 1980s technology behind the internet and bring it into the modern day, Cloudflare will also be enhancing the metaverse. They announced their distributed web gateways beta for Web 3.0, which they describe as a metaverse economy running on a decentralized blockchain platform. Their product basically sits between your device and the blockchain, making it so you don't need to download some JavaScript application to interact with your NFTs or your dApps. Instead, you could use your browser and navigate almost as if you were interacting with a normal website. And knowing Cloudflare's history of security and performance optimization, I would not be surprised if their solution ends up working much better than other solutions to service this particular need. Cloudflare also has a proven track record of innovation, and they are a rock-solid grower in terms of overall revenue. They've grown their revenue 50% year over year, basically every year since 2016. They also talked about the Web 3.0 opportunity on their last earnings call, showing that this is a focus going forward. And for them, something like the metaverse could just be the next step on their roadmap to becoming the next trillion-dollar company. I personally have owned Cloudflare shares for several years now, and even I was surprised to see how much they were buying into the metaverse while I was researching this video. But maybe you don't want to fully buy into the decentralized view of the metaverse. Well, in that case, you could buy into a content company like Roblox or even Disney, who has talked about building a virtual park. But I think you'd be better off investing in the tool that makes the content. The two big companies here are Epic Games and Unity. Epic Games makes the Unreal Engine, which is a super easy to use game engine that can be used for VR content. And Epic Games is also the game studio behind Fortnite. Fortnite is another great example of what the metaverse could look like. They have outfits you can buy in-game, and they've hosted in-game concerts with real artists. Travis Scott partnered with them last year for an in-game event where you could watch and buy his emotes in-game. There's only one problem. Epic Games is a private company. The other option is Unity, which is going to be my second metaverse stock. Unity is another game engine, which also happens to be the most popular choice for AR and VR development today. 60% of AR and VR games are currently built on Unity, and this does give the company some advantage in providing the types of tools that developers will need for building apps in the metaverse, because they already have experience with it. This is a relatively small company at only a $50 billion market cap, but they grew their revenue 48% last year. They also recently announced they would be purchasing Weta Digital, Peter Jackson's legendary digital effects studio that has done some of the most groundbreaking digital effects that we've seen in recent movies. And the last stock to round out my top three, and this may be a shock, is Facebook. Now wait, yes, I know the Zuck is an evil lizard robot who just wants your data, but hear me out on this one. Facebook has taken a stronger stance than any company in saying our primary focus going forward will be the metaverse. When a company takes a firm stance on their future direction, even if it is kind of meme-worthy, I still think it's worth at least paying attention. Look at Netflix when they declared they were now a content streaming company during a time when the web was barely fast enough to stream anything, and they were just a rinky-dink rent DVDs by mail business. Or Amazon when they said let's dump billions into the cloud and hope that other companies will trust us to run their technology infrastructure for them. I think in some ways, Facebook sees the metaverse as the same sort of opportunity that the cloud was a decade ago. Back then, they completely missed the fact that the other large tech companies like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft were building huge data centers to run other companies' backends on. And because of that, they missed out completely on the cloud opportunity. The biggest winner there was Amazon, with Amazon Web Services, probably because it launched in 2006, nearly 5 years before other companies launched a similar product. But if Facebook can have a similar head start in the metaverse area, they could see the same advantages that AWS saw in the 2010s. One of the other reasons I like Facebook as an investment here is they don't necessarily rely on a walled garden metaverse to make money. Sure, they could build a walled garden using their Oculus platform with their over 1 million current users, but they could also simply use their existing business model and monetize user data moving across the metaverse. Facebook, of all companies today, benefits from new users joining the internet, which is why they have invested in bringing the internet to underserved areas. Without even changing their business model, Facebook could see the same benefits by bringing users to the metaverse. Of course, they'll need to earn users' trust if they hope to ever compete here. Just a few months ago, they seemed more focused on profitability with Oculus than growth when they rolled out in-app ads to the headsets. But as a large company that still managed to grow revenue 35% this year, Facebook is clearly pushing for growth. And a lot of that may come from the metaverse going forward. So whether we see a walled garden metaverse or a decentralized open one, there are clearly opportunities for a discerning investor to make money. I look at this by deciding where I want to invest first. In the big movers and shakers like Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook, in the infrastructure companies like Cloudflare, the tools like Unity and Epic Games, or in the pure content plays like Roblox or Disney. Then use that to guide my future judgment. But let me know in the comments which of the 3 stocks that I picked or any of the other companies I mentioned you would most likely invest in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.